Hello, it is Erica from Mini Minions, and I've had a request on how I go about running a fecal on my goats, so I'm going to show you a modified McMaster's fecal flotation with a microscope, and it's got a counting chamber, so you get a quantitative fecal egg count. Just a little disclaimer, I'm not a veterinarian, I'm a veterinary technician, so I'm not legally allowed to diagnose, prognose, prescribe, or do surgery, but so this is just the basics and how I run fecals to determine if I really need to talk with my vet about some fecal protocols, and I'm going to show you what I do with the equipment that I've got, and yeah, let's take it around. Stuff. Alright. Over here, we've got my AmScope microscope. It has a couple things that I really enjoy about it. It has what they call a mechanical stage. So you can see that I move these things and it moves the slides. It's got two eyepieces, which I find very helpful because I'm not squinting, so I have less eye strain. On the objectives that we're using, it has 10x here, and then on the eyepiece itself, it has also a 10. So combined together, it's 100x magnification. So this magnifies it, and this magnifies it. So it's 100x total. That is the standard objectives. There are other ones on this particular microscope that are not really used. The low one can be used just to kind of get a rough focus, but not used. It's got an electrical light, which is nice, and you can adjust the intensity on the side, which is helpful for contrast. It also has on the bottom this little thing called a diaphragm, which when I switch it back and forth, you can also adjust the light this way, and that also will help with the contrast on your sample. So we have a gram scale on, which measures in hundredths of a gram. I've got myself a little Dixie cup and tongue depressor that are just craft sticks. These are 3-ounce bath cups from Walmart. And this thing right here, so let me kind of zoom in with, it's dirty, I use it very frequently. It's got these little grids on it, and there's a space that you're loading the solution in to count all the eggs. And what's really cool about that is that the microscope, when you're looking through it, it exactly lines up with the spaces within the counting chamber. So each one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It just lines up perfectly, and I'll show you that with the microscope. Notepad, poop samples. I find like a little cattle clicker works really great for counting the eggs when you've got a lot, especially when you've got numerous types of species, because you lose track. Some disinfectant stuff. This is what I use. You can use Fecamed, which is a sodium nitrate solution with a specific gravity of 1.25 to 1.3. That basically causes the eggs to float to the top, and has all the rest of the junk settle to the bottom. So let us, I'm going to be doing this a lot of one-handed, so this is going to be interesting. Or I'll probably set it up maybe this way, if my phone doesn't fall. We'll see what we can do. Alright, so I first take my cup and my tongue depressor, and I zero out the scale and the cup. Sit, stay, good. And then I'm going to weigh out exactly 2 grams of feces. .49. And if you don't have a full 2 grams, you can do like a little conversion of a ratio of poop to solution and get what you need. So there we go. 2 grams on the dot. Excellent. Yeah, prop that up. Okay. Then I just got a little mason jar that I'm gonna show you what I got. So I got a mason jar with a 60 ml syringe, and I find that weighing my solution is actually more accurate than just getting a volumetric with the syringe. So I weighed out, what is it? It is 15 milliliters of solution, and that actually equals 17.91 grams. If I did a 2 gram sample, which I'm doing today, which is what the general consensus is to use a 2 gram because it's a good size, it's 35.82 grams. If that makes any sense. If you have questions, feel free to ask away. So I'm going to zero it out once again, and I'm just going to add a little bit of solution, and I'm going to mash it up, because if I add all of the solution all at the same time, I wind up bobbing for apples. Can you see what I'm doing? I smashing poop. And this is the most important step. You want to get a really good poop slurry and break up all the poop to have any eggs released into the solution. So 2 gram sample, it will be a total of 35.82 grams of solution, because that is equal to 30 milliliters in volume based on the specific gravity of the solution. Science, it's confusing, but it's fun. Mix, mix, mix. So I only put in like a 2 milliliters, just enough to smash it up. It kind of looks like diarrhea-ish. And now that it's mashed up, I can add the rest of my solution, and it'll be easier to mix in, and I'm not bobbing for apples. So 35.82. Close enough. 35.84. So then we mix again. So we're done with our sample. Put away my scale. Always, when you're using a battery operated scale, take your batteries out when it's not being in use, because otherwise, if the solution gets on the batteries, it's going to short out these little terminals and corrode out the batteries and ruin your scale. So remove them when not in use. So now we're going to load up the counting chamber, and I'm going to put you on the side again. Come on. Sit. Stay. Alright, so big trick is to mix thoroughly before you load up the counting chamber, because you want to have everything nice and homogeneous, and you don't want any concentrated spots, because when you let it sit, the eggs are going to immediately start to float up to the top, and you don't want to get, you want to get an accurate sample. You don't want to have stuff that's already settled out and get a wrong count. So mix, mix, mix. And I get like a little spoonful, and I load it up into the chamber, kind of like that, but I'm going to fill up both sides. And the big thing is you want to make sure that your poop solution covers the entire grid. I'll show you another picture when I'm done filling this up. And so there's a little bit of a skill. You can use an eyedropper, but again, you want to have everything mixed well, nice and homogeneous. And you can run the sample just with one side of the chamber and use the other chamber for other samples, for other critters. So you can kind of do two samples at once, but I prefer to do it twice and of the same animal, and then basically take an average. So this is what we look like. Oh, stop with the focusing. There's a little bit of air bubble, but it's not really coming in contact with the grid over here, so we're good. We're good. And yeah, we can let this one-handed. Oh yeah, maybe. There we go. Okay. So when you're looking through the microscope, left is right, right is left. So I always do things in the same order, so that way I know what I did, what I haven't done yet. So we're going to move this all the way to the right side. And I'm going to be, just for example, I'm going to show you through the microscope. I'm going to move it, so the slide moves to the left, to the right. Okay, the slide is going to move to the right. And I'm going to put this onto the microscope. Come on, focus. Come here. Ta-da. Come on. So we're moving it to the right, but it goes to the left. Or back, it goes backwards. So. Yeah. So, anyway, it goes backwards. Alright, so for my notes, get stuff out of the way so I don't make a mess. For my notes, piece of paper, stuff, HOT, those are, it's the strongyle worms, it's the homunculus, the osteo, it's all the strongyles, it's just all three of them together. Cox for coccidia, so I take one count, I take the other count, and take the average, or the total, for the official count. The little thing that came with my master slide. Oh, come on out. Come on, you little piece of paper. I show you the instructions that came with the darn thing. Out. Nonsense. So this is the procedures that we followed. Weighed out 2 grams of feces, pass feces through a sieve, not necessary. Oh my gosh, why are you so blurry? So basically I used 30 milliliters with 2 grams because what this is saying is multiply it by 100. And I'm actually going to be multiplying it by 50 because it's going to be more accurate. So you can do this too. I know this is confusing. So weigh out 2 grams of feces with your flotation, stir vigorously, wait about 30 seconds for the eggs to float to the top, multiply the eggs in the 2 chambers by 100, eggs per which is equal to eggs per gram. Clean this chamber after using. Lots of confusion. It's good. It's not too bad. All right, let's see if we can get this sucker. Gonna look and see what we see. Okay. So this is looking through the microscope, and I'm going to move it around so you can see the blue lines, which are the counting chamber. And on my microscope, you can see how it lines up very nicely with the microscope field of vision. So, we're gonna start on the right. And I always go from the right to the left, top to bottom. So we do a zigzag approach. Let's see if we can focus this sucker. Okay. And what I can do is the miracle of the cell phone is I can zoom in on stuff. Oh shoot, can't really move. Okay. So all of these little round things, so smack dab in the center, the really distinct round ones, those are air bubbles. Those are just artifacts for us because I was mixing around so well. Those long, linear, kind of long rectangular looking things, that's just plant matter. The blue thing is the grid on the microscope. And we can focus it again. And the trick is you want to focus on the air bubbles because that's the top of the slide where eggs will be floating. And we can start scanning down, and I will see if I can see anything through the microscope and my cell phone. And we just start scanning with your eyes back and forth. It's a big Where's Waldo game. Sometimes you and sometimes you gotta refocus it. There we go, that's much better. Not seeing a whole lot of stuff, just air bubbles and debris. Air bubbles and debris. So, yeah. Go all the way down to the bottom. Then you move over, and then you go vertical. And you see if you can find stuff. And I will put my eye. Ooh, that one. Nope, just air bubble. I'm going to put my eyes to the microscope because I can see a little bit better. I'll see if I can find a barber pole worm egg or the hot worm egg, strongyle egg, and hopefully a coccidia. I actually ran a fecal on this particular animal not too long ago, and she was really low, so let me see what I can see. Can I come and see you? Alright. And while you're looking, you're focusing up and down just slightly to make sure everything is nice and crisp and sharp. Sometimes when I'm teaching people how to use a microscope, it's challenging because I'm about as blind as a bat when it comes to my eyesight without my glasses. But I take my glasses off when I'm looking through the microscope because otherwise the eyeglass lenses get in my way. So when I toss it over to somebody else to look through, then they've got to adjust it to their eyes, to their eye focus. So there's some going back and forth, but that helps you learn more about your microscope and how to manipulate it to get the best view possible. I'll see if I can post another video of me running a fecal on maybe some of my baby goats that have oodles and oodles of coccidia usually. And because they are young, their immune systems aren't the greatest, so these guys are the ones that always have the higher parasite loads. Because basically all goats have parasites, they eat where they poop where they eat. So they get parasites. And it's not the question of if they have parasites, because they all do. It's the question of how many. That's why we run the fecal. Well, this is rather disappointing. Okay, so I actually finished, I went zigzagging back and forth, up and down the entire fecal. Okay. And I see, this is actually outside of, hello, where are you? Outside of the actual field of vision for the, okay, so you can see the size of the grid, the blue one, and then right here, that sucker right there, that's, ooh, hello, that is considered one of them hot worms, the strongyles. So it's kind of oval shape with some stuff in the middle. And there's charts out there that I'll see if I can find pictures for. So that's the size that we're looking at. Itty bitty. So we can make pretend that we looked at all of that entire grid on that one side over here, and then we're going to move it over and look at the second grid and scan through and see if we can see anything. So again, start from top left, move down to go down, then move over one, zigzag back and forth. So because there's really not a lot, I'm not using my clicker. And when you've done hundreds of these things, your eyes get pretty good about finding parasites and being able to differentiate it between debris, eggs, coccidia, air bubbles, all sorts of fun stuff. I can post a couple of the pictures that I've taken of different parasites that I've come across while doing fecals, for myself, for others. Again, I can't really diagnose things, but I work with people to try to keep their animals healthy. This is a very boring fecal. Boring is good. Boring means we don't have to deworm. And that's a big thing, that if you're not seeing parasites, don't deworm. It's like giving antibiotics to a person who doesn't need antibiotics. Just because a person in your household has strep throat doesn't mean that you need strep throat or antibiotics. If you take antibiotics when not needing them, you develop the bacteria develop resistance, same as parasites and parasitic medications. They get resistant. Well, also, nothing on that. Let me scan around the outside, see if I can see some fun stuff. Nothing. Alright, I'll be running another fecal den tomorrow. See what sort of goodies I get. maybe it'll be a little bit more better of a video. This is just a quick demo. If you have comments, questions, concerns, I will address them in the next video. Oh, nothing in that second side. Put my 4 eyes on. So basically, we found 1 hot worm in the first chamber, 0 in the second. So you add those 2 together, which is equal to 1. Coccidia was 0, also 0. So with the dilution that we did, which is 2 grams of feces with 30 milliliters of solution, which weighs 35.82 grams, it is equal to a 50 to 1 ratio. So or I guess it's a 1 to 50. So each egg that we count here is worth 50 eggs per gram, EPG. EPG. So for this particular animal, we had 1, which is equal to 50 eggs per gram of feces. You can go online and take a look and see what reference values that some people use as far as when you need to deworm. I kind of go by this one, low, less than 500, which is 50 eggs per gram, 10 eggs counted times the dilution, the multiplier, so is equal to 500 eggs per gram. So a low level is less than 500, mid 500 to 1500, high 2000 plus. That is just some that I've seen. A lot of other people use different values. That's just what I've come across and what I use for my herd. For coccidia, anything above 5,000 eggs per gram, which is 100 counted times the multiplier of 50, is moderate. Probably should get treated. Definitely anything over 7,000 eggs per gram, which is 140 counted, multiplier of 50, should be treated. So that's what I got. Questions, comments, concerns, let me know. Thanks. See you later.